Amid rumors of Christ's resurrection, Caiaphas, the mysterious high priest who orchestrated Jesus' death step by step, was haunted by a disturbing vision. In the shadows of his own mind, he found himself face to face with the risen Jesus. The supernatural encounter tormented his soul with anguishing guilt, profoundly transforming his life. What had Jesus revealed to Caiaphas in this vision to leave him so deeply disturbed? Caiaphas, as high priest of Jerusalem, held a position of immense political and religious authority during a tumultuous period in Jewish history. His role was not merely ceremonial, it was deeply intertwined with the political landscape of the time, in which the delicate balance of power between the Jewish authorities and the Roman Empire dictated the actions of leaders like Caiaphas. The high priesthood was a fundamental institution in Jewish society, serving as the main mediator between the people and God and, at the same time, acting as an important actor in the political arena. The Sadducees, the sect to which Caiaphas belonged, were known for their collaboration with the Roman authorities, which allowed them to maintain their influence and control over the Jewish population. This alliance was crucial, as it provided the Sadducees with the means to maintain their religious practices while navigating the complexities of Roman rule. Before continuing with this content, I ask that you just check that you are already subscribed to the channel. That way, you won't miss any of our exclusive content that reveals a world beyond the conventional. Don't miss out. In this context, Caiaphas was well aware of the political ramifications of Jesus' growing popularity among the people. Jesus' teachings and miracles attracted large crowds, and his message of hope and salvation resonated with many who were disillusioned with the oppressive Roman regime and the rigid religious structures of the time. This growing number of followers represented a significant threat to the established order that Caiaphas and the Sadducees had worked so hard to maintain. The high priest feared that Jesus' influence could incite unrest among the people, potentially leading to a rebellion that would provoke a severe response from the Romans. Such a scenario could jeopardize not only the stability of the Jewish leadership, but also the very existence of the temple and the religious practices that were fundamental to Jewish identity. Caiaphas' concerns were further aggravated by the socio-political climate of the time. The Jewish people longed for a Messiah, a figure who would free them from foreign oppression and restore their sovereignty. Jesus' claims to be the Messiah, together with his radical teachings, intensified the urgency felt by Caiaphas and his fellow leaders. They recognized that if Jesus continued to gain followers, it could lead to a significant shift in power dynamics, undermining their authority and potentially leading to violent repercussions. The high priest's position required him to act decisively to quell any threat to the status quo, and Jesus had become the focal point of that threat. The urgency that led Caiaphas to act against Jesus was not just a reaction to the Nazarene's growing popularity, it was also a reflection of his deep fear of losing control. The high priest convened the Sanhedrin, the Jewish ruling council, to discuss the implications of Jesus' actions and teachings. This meeting was marked by a sense of desperation, as Caiaphas sought to gather support among the council members to deal with what he perceived as an existential crisis. The decision to arrest Jesus was not taken lightly. It was a calculated move aimed at preserving the religious and political order that had been established for generations. Faced with this urgency, Caiaphas' actions can be seen as a tragic intersection of faith, power, and fear. His role as high priest required him to uphold the laws and traditions of Judaism, but the very essence of these laws was being challenged by the radical message of Jesus. This internal conflict, combined with external pressures from the Roman government, created a perfect storm that ultimately led to Jesus' trial and condemnation. Caiaphas' influence as high priest was therefore marked by a profound struggle between maintaining authority and confronting the transformative ideas that Jesus represented. By reflecting on Caiaphas' position and the dynamics of power during this critical period, we gain an insight into the complexities of leadership and the difficult choices that accompany it, illuminating the broader themes of faith, authority, and the human condition. The events leading up to Jesus' trial were marked by a series of crucial moments that set the stage for his eventual condemnation. As Jesus' ministry progressed, his teachings and actions drew more and more attention from the Jewish authorities, especially Caiaphas, the high priest. The culmination of these tensions unfolded in a series of confrontations that would eventually lead to the trial before Caiaphas and the Sanhedrin. One of the key moments was Jesus' triumphal entry into Jerusalem, where he was greeted by crowds proclaiming him to be the Messiah. This public display of support alarmed the religious leaders, who saw it as a direct challenge to their authority and a possible catalyst for riots. In the days that followed, Jesus' actions in the temple further aggravated the situation. He overturned the tables of the money changers and criticized the commercialization of the temple, declaring it a house of prayer rather than a den of thieves. This act of defiance not only demonstrated his authority, but but also incited the anger of the religious leaders, who felt that their power and practices were being undermined. The growing animosity against Jesus reached boiling point when he began to openly challenge the interpretations of the law held by the Pharisees and Sadducees, further alienating the Jewish council. As tensions rose, the Jewish council met to discuss how to deal with Jesus' perceived threat. Caiaphas, as high priest, played a central role in these discussions, weighing up the implications of Jesus' actions against the backdrop of the political pressures he faced. The council was deeply concerned with maintaining order in a society already fraught with tension under Roman occupation. The Roman authorities were known for their swift and brutal responses to any sign of rebellion, and the Jewish leaders were well aware that any unrest could lead to serious repercussions for their community. This precarious balance of power created an atmosphere of urgency and fear, forcing Caiaphas to take decisive action. Your opinion is very important to us. Comment below on what you think of the video or if you have any questions about it. Jesus' trial before Caiaphas was marked by a series of political and religious accusations. The main charge against Jesus was blasphemy, as he claimed to be the Son of God and the Messiah. This claim was particularly inflammatory, as it directly challenged the religious beliefs of the Jewish leaders and threatened the very basis of their authority. In addition, Jesus was accused of inciting rebellion against the Roman authorities, a charge that carried significant weight given the political climate of the time. The Jewish council feared that Jesus' growing influence could lead to a popular uprising, prompting the Romans to intervene and punish the Jewish leaders for failing to maintain order. During the trial, the political pressures on Caiaphas became increasingly evident. He was caught between the demands of the Jewish council, who were anxious to eliminate the threat posed by Jesus, and the Roman authorities, who were wary of any disturbance that might disrupt their control over Judea. Caiaphas understood that failing to act decisively against Jesus could result in terrible consequences for both him and the council. This precarious situation forced him to navigate a complex web of loyalties and fears, ultimately leading him to the decision to condemn Jesus. The importance of the accusations made against Jesus cannot be overstated. They were not just legal accusations. They represented a profound clash of ideologies and beliefs. Jesus' claims to divinity and his challenge to the established religious order threatened the very fabric of Jewish identity and authority. The trial before Caiaphas therefore became a critical moment in history, as it encapsulated the struggle between tradition and transformation, faith and power. The outcome of this trial would not only seal Jesus' fate, but would also reverberate through the ages, shaping the course of religious thought and the understanding of authority in the centuries that followed. As we reflect on these events, we gain an insight into the complexities of leadership, the weight of accusations, and the profound impact of individual choices in the face of overwhelming pressure. Caiaphas' decision to condemn Jesus to death was the culmination of several motivations that intertwined political, religious, and personal factors. As high priest, Caiaphas had the task of maintaining the religious integrity of the Jewish people and at the same time, navigating the complex political landscape of Roman rule. His motivations were deeply rooted in the desire to preserve the status quo and protect the authority of the temple. Jesus' growing popularity and radical teachings posed a significant threat to this delicate balance. Caiaphas perceived Jesus not only as a blasphemer, but also as a potential catalyst for unrest that could provoke a violent response from the Roman authorities. The high priest's actions were motivated by a sense of urgency to eliminate what he saw as a dangerous influence that could destabilize the fragile peace that the Jewish leadership had managed to maintain under Roman supervision. The implications of Caiaphas' decision to sacrifice one for the nation were profound. In the Gospel of John, Caiaphas says the famous phrase, "It is better for you that one man should die for the people, and not that the whole nation should perish." This statement sums up the logic behind his actions, reflecting a utilitarian perspective that prioritizes the collective well-being of the Jewish people over the life of an individual. Caiaphas believed that by condemning Jesus, he could prevent a greater crisis that could lead to widespread suffering and the possible destruction of the temple and the Jewish way of life. This decision highlights the tension between individual rights and the perceived greater good, a dilemma that resonates throughout history and continues to be relevant in contemporary discussions about justice and morality. However, the moral and ethical dilemmas faced by Caiaphas were significant and complex. On the one hand, he was fulfilling his duty as a religious leader, charged with upholding the laws and traditions of Judaism. On the other hand, he was making a decision that would lead to the execution of an innocent man, a choice that raises profound questions about justice and righteousness. Caiaphas' actions can be seen as a tragic compromise, in which the desire to protect the community led to the betrayal of fundamental ethical principles. This internal conflict is emblematic of the wider struggles faced by leaders throughout history, who often find themselves torn between conflicting loyalties and the harsh realities of their circumstances. Furthermore, Caiaphas' decision reflects the wider social pressures that influenced his actions. The Jewish council was not only concerned about Jesus' influence, but also their own standing with the Roman authorities. The fear of losing power and control in a volatile political environment weighed heavily on Caiaphas and his fellow leaders. This fear can lead to a willingness to sacrifice moral integrity for political expediency, a theme that resonates in various contexts throughout history. The high priest's choice to condemn Jesus can therefore be seen as a desperate attempt to maintain authority and avoid chaos, even at the cost of justice. If you're finding value in this video, please leave a like. It really makes a difference to us and helps other people discover our content. As we analyze Caiaphas' decision, it becomes clear that his actions were not merely the result of personal animosity against Jesus, but were deeply intertwined with the socio-political realities of the time. The high priest's motivations were shaped by a complex interplay of fear, ambition, and the desire to protect his people. Ultimately, this decision serves as a poignant reminder of the moral complexities inherent in leadership, where the lines between right and wrong can become blurred in the face of overwhelming pressure. In reflecting on Caiaphas' choice, we are invited to consider the wider implications of the sacrifice of one for many. The ethical dilemmas he faced resonate with contemporary issues surrounding justice, authority, and the value of individual lives in the context of society's needs. Caiaphas' decision to condemn Jesus to death is a powerful testimony to the challenges of leadership, the weight of moral responsibility, and the ongoing struggle between personal conviction and the demands of power. In dealing with these themes, we gain an insight into the human condition and the complexities that define our choices, both past and present. The immediate aftermath of Jesus' execution was profound and far-reaching, affecting not only his followers, but also the political and religious landscape of Jerusalem. Caiaphas' reaction to the news of Jesus' death was one of relief mixed with apprehension. After orchestrating the trial and securing Jesus' conviction, the high priest may have initially felt a sense of victory, believing that he had successfully eliminated a significant threat to Jewish authority and the stability of the temple. However, this relief was short-lived, as the political climate in Jerusalem began to change dramatically after the crucifixion. In the days following Jesus' execution, the atmosphere in Jerusalem was fraught with tension and uncertainty. The Jewish leaders, including Caiaphas, were well aware of the potential for unrest among Jesus' followers, who were devastated by the loss of their leader. The crucifixion not only silenced Jesus, but also galvanized his disciples, who now faced the challenge of reconciling their faith with the brutal reality of his death. The fear of a negative reaction from Jesus' supporters was great, and the Jewish council was on high alert, worried that the execution might incite riots or provoke a larger movement in favor of Jesus' teachings. This precarious situation forced Caiaphas and the other leaders to adopt a defensive posture as they tried to maintain control over the increasingly volatile environment. In the midst of this turmoil, rumors began to circulate about Jesus' resurrection. Reports of sightings of the risen Christ spread quickly among his followers, igniting a fervor that threatened to undermine the authority of the Jewish leaders. The idea that Jesus had risen from the dead was not only a source of hope for his disciples, but also a direct challenge to the legitimacy of Caiaphas' actions. If Jesus had indeed risen, this would validate his claims to divinity and messianism, casting doubt on the council's decision to condemn him. This prospect was deeply disturbing for Caiaphas, who had worked diligently to suppress Jesus' influence. The rumors about the resurrection posed a significant threat to the fragile stability that the Jewish leaders had tried to maintain. In response to these events, Caiaphas and the council took steps to neutralize the growing movement around Jesus' resurrection. They tried to discredit the claims by spreading counter-narratives, suggesting that the disciples had stolen Jesus' body to fabricate the story of his resurrection. This tactic was intended to undermine the credibility of the resurrection claims and restore confidence in the authority of the Jewish leadership. However, the persistence of the resurrection narrative only fueled fervor among Jesus' followers, leading to the formation of a growing movement that would eventually evolve into early Christianity. The political climate in Jerusalem after the crucifixion was marked by growing tensions between the Jewish authorities and Jesus' followers. The disciples, encouraged by their belief in the resurrection, began to preach openly about Jesus' teachings and the significance of his death and resurrection. This new wave of evangelism represented a direct challenge to the established religious order, causing Caiaphas and the council to look into the implications of their earlier decision. The authority of the high priest was now being questioned, and the very foundations of the temple's power were at risk. As the situation unfolded, Caiaphas found himself in a precarious position. The rumors of Jesus' resurrection not only threatened his leadership, but also raised existential questions about the nature of faith and authority. The high priest's initial relief at Jesus' execution had turned into a sense of urgency to quell the rising tide of belief in the resurrection. The implications of this belief went beyond the immediate political scene. They challenged the very essence of Jewish identity and understanding of the messianic promise. In conclusion, the immediate aftermath of Jesus' execution was marked by the complex reaction of Caiaphas, the changing political climate in Jerusalem, and the explosive rumors of Jesus' resurrection. These events prepared the ground for a profound transformation in the Jewish community and the emergence of a new religious movement. Caiaphas' struggle to maintain authority in the face of these challenges highlights the intricate interplay between faith, power, and human experience, revealing the lasting impact of Jesus' life and death on the course of history. Caiaphas' transformative vision of the risen Jesus marked a profound turning point in his life that would challenge the very foundations of his beliefs and actions. After Jesus' crucifixion, Caiaphas was dealing with the consequences of his decisions. The political climate in Jerusalem was increasingly unstable, and rumors of Jesus' resurrection were spreading like wildfire among Christ's followers. It was during this tumultuous time that Caiaphas had a vision that would forever alter his understanding of Jesus and his own role in the unfolding narrative. The emotional and spiritual impact of this vision on Caiaphas was immense. At that moment, he was confronted with the reality of Jesus' resurrection, a phenomenon that defied all logic and expectation. The high priest, who had previously seen Jesus as a mere threat to his authority, now found himself face to face with the embodiment of divine hope and power. This encounter provoked a whirlwind of emotions in him: fear, wonder, and an overwhelming sense of regret. Caiaphas was forced to confront the implications of his previous actions, recognizing that he had participated in the death of someone who was not only innocent, but also the very embodiment of the divine. The weight of this realization fell upon him, driving him into a deep internal struggle, as he wrestled with feelings of guilt and remorse. As the vision unfolded, Caiaphas' perspective on Jesus underwent a radical transformation. He could no longer dismiss Jesus as a mere blasphemer or a misguided rabbi. Instead, he began to see him as the Messiah he had claimed to be. This revelation shook the rigidity of Caiaphas' faith and mind. This revelation broke the rigid boundaries of Caiaphas' understanding of faith and authority. The high priest, who had previously been a staunch defender of the temple and its traditions, now found himself questioning the very principles of his beliefs. The vision illuminated the possibility that Jesus' message of love, forgiveness, and redemption was not only valid, but essential for the spiritual renewal of the Jewish people. This new understanding forced Caiaphas to reconsider his role on the religious scene and the implications of his leadership. The importance of this encounter cannot be overstated, especially in the context of Caiaphas' previous actions. His decision to condemn Jesus to death was motivated by a desire to protect the authority of the temple and maintain order in a politically charged environment. However, the sight of the risen Jesus forced him to confront the moral and ethical dilemmas inherent in his choices. Caiaphas was now faced with the reality that his actions had contributed to the very injustice he had tried to prevent. This realization was not only a personal reckoning, but also a broader reflection on the nature of power and the responsibilities that accompany it. In the wake of this transformative vision, Caiaphas found himself at a crossroads. His encounter with the risen Jesus awakened in him a desire for redemption, leading him to seek a path that aligned with Christ's teachings rather than the rigid traditions he defended. This change of perspective was not without its challenges. Caiaphas was well aware of the possible negative reaction from his fellow leaders and the risk of losing his position of authority. However, the vision instilled in him a sense of purpose that transcended personal ambition. He began to think about how he could contribute to the spiritual awakening of his people, even if it meant moving away from the very institution he had previously fiercely defended. Ultimately, Caiaphas' transformative vision of the risen Jesus served as a catalyst for a profound change within him. It challenged him to re-evaluate his beliefs, confront the consequences of his actions, and embrace a new understanding of faith that was rooted in love and compassion. This encounter not only altered Caiaphas' perspective on Jesus, but also opened the door to a broader dialogue about the nature of authority, justice, and redemption. In navigating the complexities of his newfound faith, Caiaphas became a symbol of the transformative power of grace, illustrating that even those who have strayed from the path can find their way back through the light of understanding and forgiveness. In this way, his vision of the risen Jesus became a pivotal moment not only in his life, but also in the history of early Christianity, highlighting the lasting impact of Jesus' message on individuals and communities. Jesus' resurrection marked a crucial moment in history, serving as a catalyst for the rapid growth of Christianity in the years that followed. For Jesus' followers, the resurrection was not just a miraculous event, it was the confirmation of their faith and the fulfillment of Jesus' promises. This transformative experience galvanized the disciples, instilling in them a renewed sense of purpose and urgency to spread Jesus' message. The resurrection provided them with a powerful narrative of hope, redemption, and eternal life, which resonated deeply among those who were disillusioned with the socio-political realities of the time. As a result, the first Christians felt encouraged to share their beliefs, which led to a remarkable expansion of the movement. At the center of the spread of Christianity were key figures such as Peter and John, whose leadership and fervor played a crucial role in spreading Jesus' teachings. Peter, generally considered the main apostle, emerged as an important spokesman for the early church. After the resurrection, he delivered powerful sermons that articulated the significance of Jesus' death and resurrection, emphasizing the message of repentance and forgiveness. His bold proclamations, especially during events such as Pentecost, attracted large crowds and led to the conversion of thousands of people. Peter's ability to connect with Jewish audiences and articulate the fulfillment of messianic prophecies helped lay a solid foundation for the growing Christian community. John, another important apostle, also played a vital role in spreading Jesus' message. Known for his deep theological insights and emphasis on love, John's writings and teachings resonated with both Jewish and Gentile audiences. His gospel, along with the letters attributed to him, emphasized the divinity of Christ and the importance of love and community among believers. Together, Peter and John exemplified the diverse approaches within the early church, as they reached out to different segments of society, fostering a sense of unity and purpose among Christ's followers. The emergence of Christianity provoked significant changes in society, challenging the established norms and values of the time. One of the most profound changes was the message of inclusion and equality that Christianity promoted. In a society marked by rigid hierarchies and social divisions, the first Christians embraced individuals from various backgrounds, including the marginalized and outcast. This radical inclusion attracted many who felt alienated by the prevailing religious and social structures. The early church became a sanctuary for the poor, women, and those on the margins of society, offering them a sense of belonging and purpose. In addition, Jesus' teachings emphasized love, compassion, and service to others, which inspired a new ethical framework that contrasted sharply with the prevailing values of the Roman Empire. The early Christians were known for their acts of charity and care for the sick and needy, which not only reflected their faith, but also began to reshape society's attitudes towards compassion and community responsibility. This commitment to social justice and caring for the vulnerable laid the foundations for the development of charitable institutions and practices that would become hallmarks of Christian communities. As Christianity spread, it also began to influence cultural and philosophical thinking. The early church engaged with the prevailing Greco-Roman philosophies, integrating elements of these ideas into its teachings while maintaining the central message of the gospel. This intellectual engagement allowed Christianity to resonate with a wider audience, facilitating its acceptance among the educated elites and diverse populations of the Roman Empire. The rapid growth of Christianity after the resurrection was not without its challenges. The first Christians faced persecution and opposition from the Jewish authorities and the Roman Empire, who saw the movement as a threat to the established order. However, these challenges only served to strengthen the resolve of the believers, who remained steadfast in their commitment to spreading the message of Jesus. If you found this video useful or interesting, don't forget to share it with your friends and family. In conclusion, Jesus' resurrection was a transformative event that profoundly influenced his followers, leading to the rapid growth of Christianity. The leadership of figures such as Peter and John played a crucial role in spreading Jesus' teachings, while the emergence of Christianity brought about significant changes in society, promoting inclusion, compassion, and a new ethical framework. By navigating the complexities of its environment, the early church laid the foundations for a movement that would go on to shape the course of history, transcending cultural and geographical boundaries and leaving an indelible mark on the world. Caiaphas' feelings of remorse after Jesus' condemnation were complex and deeply rooted in an internal conflict that tormented him after the trial. As high priest, Caiaphas had the task of upholding the laws and traditions of Judaism, but the decision to condemn Jesus weighed heavily on his conscience. Initially, he may have felt justified in his actions, believing that he was protecting the authority of the temple and maintaining order in a politically charged environment. However, as rumors of Jesus' resurrection spread and the movement he inspired began to gain momentum, Caiaphas found himself wrestling with the moral implications of his choices. The realization that he had played a key role in the death of an innocent man, whom many now believed to be the Messiah, provoked in him a deep sense of regret. This internal conflict was exacerbated by the social changes that followed Jesus' execution. The rise of Christianity and the fervor surrounding the resurrection challenged the very foundations of the religious authority that Caiaphas sought to protect. Witnessing the growing influence of Jesus' followers, Caiaphas began to question whether his actions had really served the greater good. The weight of his decisions became increasingly unbearable, leading him to reflect on the consequences of sacrificing one for many. This introspection forced Caiaphas to confront the reality that his quest for power and control came at a significant moral cost. The importance of Caiaphas' public confession and renunciation cannot be overstated. In a society where leaders were expected to maintain a facade of unwavering authority, his admission of guilt represented a radical departure from the norm. By publicly acknowledging his remorse, Caiaphas not only demonstrated a willingness to face up to his own failings, but also signaled a change in the dynamics of Jewish leadership. His resignation was a powerful act of responsibility, reflecting his recognition that the path he had chosen was not only harmful to his own soul, but also to the community he had sworn to protect. This act of humility resonated with many, as it highlighted the importance of integrity and moral courage in leadership. If this video was of any value to you, please consider subscribing to the channel. This not only supports the work we're doing here, but also helps spread these transformative ideas to others who can benefit from them. In conclusion, Caiaphas' feelings of remorse and his eventual resignation were the result of a deep internal conflict that arose after Jesus' condemnation. His public confession represented a significant shift in the dynamics of Jewish leadership, highlighting the importance of responsibility and moral integrity. The impact of his actions on his legacy was profound, transforming him from an authority figure into a symbol of the complexities of leadership and the moral dilemmas faced by those in power. As Caiaphas faced the consequences of his decisions, he became a poignant reminder of the ongoing struggle between authority and conscience, illustrating the potential for redemption and change even in the most challenging circumstances.